Australia in 2014 with Metropolitan Valerian to celebrate on this very Sunday. And Metropolitan Valerian, toward the end, it was time to preach, and he said, "Oh, you go preach." So I got to instantly make that my favorite topic, and so here he is, Constantine, talking to us on that. God be with us.
Thank you, Father George, Father Christopher, and our Matushka. She's the organizer. You know, she's the one who calls me weeks ahead of time and prepares the way. She's the forerunneress of this community.
One of my priest friends used to call his wife, "I'll have to check with the home bishop."
That's true. And the truth is, to this day, most of the work of the church is done by women. Let's not kid ourselves. It's really the women that do most of the work in the background, and nothing has changed. So it was the same back then. And Christ is risen.
Truly is risen.
It's great to be here, and it's really a wonderful Sunday. This period of the Lord's resurrection, the joy of the resurrection and the joy of the myrrh-bearing women, and all the excitement that they had right from the beginning. So I couldn't help notice some of your icons right here, and they happen to be done by one of my favorite iconographers, Theophanes the Cretan, who was born 1545 and lived till 1559. Was one of the greatest masters of iconography, and he influenced many, many others with what we call the Cretan school of iconography, where you see the characteristic colors, bright reds. That's the Cretan school. Over there on the side, you'll see more of a green background. That's the Macedonian school of iconography. But we can't help notice the beautiful dogmatic iconography of the myrrh-bearing women. Right here is the icon, which in Greek is called ukestin ode. He's not here. That's the name of that icon. He is not here. And of course, we see some wonderful things there that reminisce this icon over here, the icon of the Lord's nativity. We see many, many similarities. The Lord, when he came into the world, the protagonist male figure was Joseph, the one betrothed to the Theotokos. And when the Lord was exiting this world, his burial and entombment was served by Joseph of Arimathea. We see a cave in the icon of the Nativity. He came into this life in a cave, and he will exit this life in a cave. You can see the mountain, and also you see the dark right there that signifies the cave that he was buried in. He came in this life wrapped in swaddling clothes, strips of linen, and he will leave this life wrapped in strips of linen. He came in this life, and he was offered myrrh by the Magi. And when he exits this life, his body will be wrapped with strips of linen and 100 liters of myrrh and aloe. The woman protagonist in the mystery of the Nativity, the center of that icon, is the most important woman in the world, the one second to the Holy Trinity, the most holy Theotokos. And you will see that same very color, the color of her garments, to be right here in this icon of the myrrh-bearing women. Because in the next 15 to 20 minutes, we will show very clearly through the scriptures that the first person that saw Christ, the first one to hear about the resurrection, was certainly not Mary Magdalene, as St. Mark said in the Gospel, and I will explain, but the first one to see the Lord was the most holy Theotokos. And this seems a little bit confusing because in the 9th verse of that last chapter of St. Mark, it says that early in the morning the first one to see the Lord was Mary Magdalene. But 9 verses before, the same evangelist talks about 3 women going to the sepulchre very early in the morning, very specific in the Greek language. Early in the morning and very early in the morning. So we'll backtrack a little bit and talk about St. Joseph of Arimathea, who was a secret disciple, who was hidden because of the fear of the Jews. He was a nobleman, very wealthy, and a member of the Sanhedrin. And he did not agree with the decision of the rest of the Sanhedrin to crucify the Lord. But he was the minority, obviously. And here, while those who were around Christ for 3 years, those who saw all the miracles, the apostles, they went into hiding. Now we have someone who became much more daring. And this is by divine providence, of course. And he happened to be very wealthy, and that would be very influential to Pilate. So at the opportune time, when he was witnessing all the miracles at the crucifixion of Christ, and the darkness, 3-hour darkness from 12 to 3, his faith became unshakable, and his love for the Lord casted out all fear. So why did the women go before the men? Because the men, they're more logical, where women are moved by their heart. They do things and they ask questions later. Where men, they sit there and analyze things. Where women go. But in this particular case, Nicodemus, the secret disciple of Christ, the one who Christ had that great dialogue about being born from above. Again, he became the partner of this great service to the Lord. They helped to bring the Lord down from the cross. And this was not an easy thing, because when someone was crucified, he was condemned by the Roman authorities. And when somebody was condemned by Rome, they were going to be put in a common grave along with the other thieves. He was property of Rome at this point, because Rome made the decision for crucifixion. So without the providence of God, the Lord's body would be thrown in the same grave with the other 2 thieves. But God provides for everything. So St. Joseph of Arimathea dared. He became very courageous, much more so than the apostles. And he went to Pilate and he asked for the body. They had about 3 hours to prepare the body, because they had to go home, participate in the Sabbath, in the Paschal of the Jews. So during that time, Nicodemus went to the shops and he bought over 5 gallons, a 5-gallon bucket of myrrh and aloe, an extreme amount, to show their honor for this person who they believed was falsely crucified and condemned. And while Nicodemus went for myrrh and aloe and the sheet, the strips of linen, which is beautifully detailed by St. John the Apostle, St. Joseph went to Pilate, and because of his position, he asked Pilate for the body. And at that point, the centurion, that was the purpose of the spear. The spear on the side was going to make sure that the Lord was dead. Because the spear, this was a sharpshooter that guided the spear through the side, through the heart. And the wound on the side was not a little wound, because the gospel, according to St. John, will say that, here, Thomas, put your hand in my side. Put your fingers on the spot of the nails, but put your entire hand in my wound. It was a huge wound, the size of a spear. And after this, when Pilate confirmed the death of Christ, then he gifted, that's the Greek word, dorisato, gift. He gifted the body to Joseph. Pilate was nicely predisposed by his wife, who became one of the saints of our church. His wife saw a dream and told Pilate, have nothing to do with this righteous man. I saw him in a dream, and I suffer a lot on account of him. Have nothing to do with him. But he didn't believe his wife, and his wife became a saint of our church. Procla. And we don't know what happened to Pilate. By some accounts, he committed suicide. Some other accounts say that he lost his position, definitely went back to Rome. But St. Joseph and St. Nicodemus took the body down. Women were not permitted to touch a dead body or come near a body. That's why all the myrrh-bearing women, the women that took care of Christ these three years, they are the ones who were cooking, serving, providing meals. They were the myrrh-bearing women. These were women who were very close to Christ. They stood afar and they watched the burial. So they would come after the Sabbath and put additional myrrh on the body. So St. John the Divine, who gives us excellent details, talks about strips of a linen according to the custom of the Jews. So they took the body down and then they put it in this carved out tomb that was property of Joseph. It was for his family, that no one was laid in. No one was laid in this cave, in this tomb. And everything about Christ is brand new linen. He rode on a brand new donkey. Well, no, not a new donkey, but a donkey that nobody else rode on. Everything had to be brand new because he's a king. And everything offered to a king has to be brand new. But also because he's going to create a new creation. Everything about him is brand new. And obviously, that tomb, nobody else should have been laid in that tomb because the resurrection would have been doubted. So no one else was buried in that tomb. So they take the body and they cut strips of linen. They throw a lot of the myrrh and aloe on the body, which is a very sticky substance, and they wrap it from foot all the way to the neck. It was wrapped over and over and over again with myrrh and aloe, and eventually after 3, 4, 5 hours, this myrrh and aloe dried totally, and you had a cast. So how would the disciples steal the body? They would need weeks to use utility knives to separate, the body from the myrrh and aloe. And that's exactly what we see here. We see the ophonia, or strips of linen, because 33 hours after he was buried, according to some church fathers, he spent 33 years on earth, and then he spent 33 hours in Hades. He died at 3 o'clock, so he was buried during that time. So from 3 o'clock until midnight Sunday, that makes those 3 days, not 3 24-hour periods, as some people become very confused with. It was Friday from 3 to 6, that's one day. From 6 to 6 Saturday, that's a second day, because the day of the Jews started at 6 o'clock. And then from 6 to 12, we have the third day. And sometime after 12 o'clock at midnight, Christ resurrected. Nobody knows when, because no natural creation would see the resurrection of Christ. So now that gets us to Sunday morning, very early Sunday morning. And St. Gregory Palamas has a beautiful homily on this very day. His sermon on the myrrh-bearing women, and I can email it to you, I have it. It's just an amazing sermon of how he analyzes all 4 Gospels. We have the resurrection Gospels. Each evangelist wrote 1 chapter. John dedicated 2 chapters to the resurrection. Some of the accounts talk about 3 women going to the tomb, and other accounts says 2 women. St. John says only Mary Magdalene, and that's very confusing. And St. Gregory explains that this was such a huge, magnificent event that people are running back and forth. The myrrh-bearing women went to the tomb in groups. They went 2, 3 at a time. They ran back. Then some got very afraid, the earthquake, and also the resurrection itself, the body not being there. All of a sudden, there'll be soldiers swarming the place. The whole Jerusalem was up in arms. And now the body's gone. They're afraid, and some of them are going back and forth. But we'll start with Matthew. Matthew tells us about this account. Very early in the morning, or through Theos. And St. Gregory says very early in the morning can mean anything from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning, when we begin to see some colors coming from the east. But most likely it was closer to 5 because, the gates were closed. The gates of Jerusalem were closed at night. So the myrrh-bearing women waited until the gates would open. Now, was that 5 in the morning, 5:36? We don't really know. Alexander, good to see you. Alexander is here. So we hear the account from Matthew. Very early, at dusk, while still dark in the morning, Mary Magdalene and the mother of James. The mother of James. In some accounts, Mark will say the mother of James and the mother of Joseph. Another account will say the other Mary. And St. Gregory Palamas says this other Mary and the mother of James is undoubtedly, without a doubt, the most holy Theotokos. You can see her right here. And you can see the same color right here under the cross. You can see how similar it is. You see how dogmatic our iconography is. So why all this cryptic language? Why couldn't they just say Jesus' mother? Because it would not make a very good witness to the non-believers. People would ask, now who saw Christ resurrect? Well, his mother did.
Right.
There's a certain closeness between a son and a mother, and not every mother is as holy as the Virgin Mary. But again, the non-believers who never met the Virgin Mary would never really believe. His mother saw him resurrect or saw him after the resurrection. So the disciples very strategically used very cryptic language to veil her and shield her. And St. Gregory says, but then the apostles and the evangelists were speaking to non-believers. But today we have the privilege to be speaking to believers. So we're going to tell you the whole truth, St. Gregory says. We're going to just reveal everything, what the evangelists could not reveal at the time. So according to St. Matthew, we have Mary Magdalene and the mother of James, the Virgin Mary, who was the center of all the myrrh-bearing women. And after Christ's resurrection, she was the center of the church. The apostles got her blessing before they went anywhere. And Saint Dionysius the Areopagite, his life dream was, because he couldn't get to see Christ in life, he said, since I couldn't see Christ, I have one dream in life. I want to see his mother. And that's why he was also taken up in clouds during her dormition to go to Jerusalem, Gethsemane, and see his mother. Along with Erotheos, the first bishop of Athens. They were present at the dormition of the most holy Theotokos. So very early in the morning, Mary Magdalene and our most holy Theotokos, the mother of James, the one who wrote the epistle, the first bishop of Jerusalem. They come to the tomb because perfect love casts out all fear. The apostles are petrified. Peter denied Christ. The other apostles, they're afraid. So they're in hiding. While the myrrh-bearing women, they're ready. They bought their addition of myrrh, and they're going to be visiting the tomb. But the first two, or perhaps three, that go very early in the morning is Mary Magdalene and the most holy Theotokos, the other Mary, or the mother of James. So as they're going there, when they got close, they said, who's going to move the stone for us? And right away, Archangel Gabriel, who's given a command by his master, his Lord, says, hey, my mother is coming to my tomb, go help her out. And these are the words of St. Gregory Palamas, the greatest theologian of our church after the first millennium. The Archangel Gabriel sees them coming, and he comes down in the uncreated light, and what happens to the guards? They fell down as dead. Even Daniel, for those of you who read a lot, remember when Archangel Michael appeared to Daniel in the Old Testament? What happened to Daniel when he saw Archangel Michael? He went down and took him 2 weeks to recuperate. Remember that? When he saw Archangel Michael. So we don't have the eyes to see angels. So that's why we don't see angels. We get blinded with their brilliance and the uncreated light. So Archangel Gabriel comes down. He moves the stone for the mother of our Lord. And when this happened, there's an earthquake. The guards are as dead. They fell down from the brilliance of the angel. They took off, and they're still running. They went all the way to the Jews and told them, this is what happened. And what did the teachers of the law did? The teachers of the law, who were supposed to be upholding the law of Moses, who were taught not to bear false witness. The teachers of the law now teach the soldiers to lie. Tell them that while you are asleep, the disciples came and stole the body. And St. John of Chrysostom, who was an attorney, says, excuse me, if you were asleep, how did you see somebody stealing the body? So the soldiers are gone, and now the brilliance of the angel is too strong for the eyes of Mary Magdalene. She sees the commotion, she sees the brilliance, but she doesn't hear anything. It seems like the angel was directing his talk directly to the Virgin Mary, because she didn't even hear that the Lord is risen. The Virgin Mary did. She heard everything. So at this point, Mary Magdalene is panic-stricken. She's afraid, and she runs. She goes to tell the apostles that the body is not there. After she runs, now a couple other women come. They meet with the Panagia. Some of them hear that the body is not here, the Lord resurrected. They are also panic-stricken, and they ran for the fear of the Jews, and also the possibility of soldiers swarming this entire area again. And at this point, those who dared to stay with the Virgin Mary, they saw the Lord, and he appeared to them. And according to St. Gregory, it was only the Virgin Mary who fell down and worshipped him and touched his feet. Although it's not very clear, again, with the other apostles for the same reason that I mentioned, because they veil some of these things, because the non-believers, again, it would not be so easy for them to believe because of the relationship of mother and son. And this becomes very, very clear with the Gospel of John. St. John, in his Gospel, says that Mary Magdalene, early in the morning, went to the tomb by herself. He just mentions Mary Magdalene. Doesn't talk about the Virgin Mary at all. Perhaps, again, because they were going back and forth. And this is taking place from like 5:36 in the morning to about 8, 9. So women are running back and forth. And Mary Magdalene ran to tell the apostles what? She runs and she speaks to Peter and the apostle, the disciple that Jesus loved. Who was? John. And he tells them what? Not the Lord is risen, not I saw an angel, nothing. She runs to them weeping and saying, someone took the body. Someone rolled a stone. The body is not there. And she's crying. She didn't say to them that the Lord is risen. Nothing. She just tells them the body's gone. She's besides herself. And now Peter and John run to the tomb, according to the account of John. Peter is slower because he's much older. He's the oldest of the apostles. John's probably around 20, 21 years old. He gets there first. He's much faster. But he's afraid to go in. He waits until Peter gets there. And Peter goes in first. And when he goes in, he says exactly this. No angel. They didn't see the apostles didn't see an angel. They just see this. They see the strips of linen, like a cocoon that's empty. Because when the Lord resurrected, he didn't need the angel to move the stone. The Lord resurrected, as I said much earlier. He went through the strips of linen, through the rock, just like later on he would go through walls to appear in the upper room to visit the apostles. So John and Peter go. They see that the body's not there, but they still have no idea what happened. Of course, the Virgin Mary told them later, look, he resurrected. An angel told us. They were still in disbelief. They couldn't believe it. It wasn't just, as Father said this morning, it wasn't just Thomas who was in disbelief. It was all the apostles. They doubted. This transcends logic. Where the women will say, no, we saw an angel. But now, Mary Magdalene had missed all this because she was running back and forth. And now, after John and Peter visited, she stays behind. She's still crying. And beautiful account there. We have some hymnology in the church, beautiful hymns that say, woman, why are you crying? Why are you crying? And she's telling person that appeared like she thought he was the gardener. I said, "Sir, they have stolen the body of my Lord, and I don't know where they have laid him. Please tell me, where did you take him? Where did you lay him? Tell me, and I'll go carry him myself. Tell me, where did you take the body?" So at this point, she doesn't know anything about the resurrection. So she was not the first one to see the resurrected Lord. This was much later in the day. So she's weeping, crying, and then she sees two angels inside the tomb. And the angels are telling her, "Woman, why are you weeping? They stole my Lord. They stole the body of my Lord, and I don't know where they put him." And then the angels were startled because in the back they saw the Lord. The angels showed an expression in their face, and that's when Mary went, "My Rabbi, my teacher, my Lord," after John and Peter went to the tomb. And after the Panagia and a couple of the other myrrh-bearing women saw the Lord and embraced his feet. And she sees the Lord and she dives. She loves the Lord. He took 7 demons out of her. She was ill and she dedicated her life to him, to his service. And now she's so ecstatic because she feels that the good days are going to begin again. All these 3 years that they were going around and teaching and she was serving the Lord, this was a wonderful time and wonderful days, and she wants this to continue. And she dives and tries to touch the Lord and says, "Maria, do not touch me. Nimwaktu, do not touch me, because although I haven't gone to my Father yet, and after that you'll never be able to touch me again, but even though I haven't gone to my Father, the relationship that you knew for the last 3 years, now I have a resurrected body. I will no longer be with you in body, but in a spiritual relationship." So he wants to prepare her for this separation, because she was still expecting the old days to continue. And this somewhat explains it, because it wasn't about touching his body, because later on he allowed Thomas to touch the body, and he allowed a couple of the other myrrh-bearing women to touch the body when they worshipped him, but he wouldn't allow her, because he wanted to correct her and let her know that ministry is now over, and Pentecost will be here soon. You'll have the Holy Spirit, and of course, I will always be with you, but this period of cooking for me and needing to take care of me is no longer necessary. So after this, Mary Magdalene became a great apostle, and of course she went back and told the apostles, "I saw the Lord, he appeared to me," and they still would not believe. The apostles thought these are idle tales, these are women's stories. And that's why the Lord castigated them when he appeared to them that night, to the 11, well actually there were 10, because Thomas wasn't there and Judas was not around. So he appeared, went through the walls, "Peace be with you," because they were startled. They were in a state of unrest. They were thinking, we're going to be arrested. The Jews will be all over us again. But now their Lord appears, and he needs to restore their peace. Irini imin, peace be with you. And of course, Thomas was not there. So he appeared to the totality of the apostles at least 3 times. And he appeared to others individually. He appeared to James. He appeared at least 11 times before his ascension. But we have 3 accounts where he appeared to the group of the apostles. The one in the upper room when Thomas was not there, and that was the night of the resurrection. And then last week, a week later, he appeared to all those again with Thomas. Thomas was there, and Thomas, of course, needed to witness the resurrection. And we call it the good unbelief of Thomas. The good unbelief. Because of his good unbelief, now a lot of us who are doubtful, so it's okay to doubt. But after he received the experiential knowledge, and it wasn't that he wasn't really believing, but his thinking was this, I believe. It was, I'm going to be an apostle. And people are going to be asking me, "Did you see the resurrected Lord?" No, I didn't. But my other disciples saw him. So he insisted, "No, I need to see the Lord. I need to see him with my own eyes." Because that would be very instrumental in his apostolic missionary journey. He needed to have a personal witness to the resurrection of Christ. That's why he insisted. "You saw him, I got to see him." And he saw the resurrected Lord. And at that point, he made one of the greatest confessions in the New Testament, proclamation, as Father George said. my Lord and my God. To this day, this verse makes the Jehovah's Witnesses tremble. How do you get around this? Not very easily. My Lord and my God. And the Mormons. All those who do not believe in the incarnation of God. St. Thomas proclaims, my Lord and my God. And then after that, he became the great disciple of India, and he went all the way to India, and he established churches there. But then we also have to talk about Peter, the denier, who denied Christ 3 times. And this denial lost his discipleship. He was no longer an apostle after this. Remember in the beginning, after they caught all those fish, and after he made that great proclamation, who do people say that I am? Some say you're the prophet Elijah. Some say that you are Moses or one of the prophets. Who do you say that I am? And Peter, who was explosive and quick, says, you are the Son of the living God. A weaker proclamation than Thomas's, but still a strong, you are the Son, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. At this point, they had not a clear idea that Christ is the second person of the Holy Trinity. They could not really articulate, they could not understand that or comprehend that. This will come after Pentecost. They knew he was the Messiah and that he was going to be the liberator of Israel. But because of the teachings of the Jews at the time, they believed in a Messiah who's going to liberate them from the Romans and who's going to bring the kingdom of Israel right here and now. And when this did not happen and they saw him crucified, they were scandalized. You can read that in the dialogue of the two going to Emmaus. And they are depressed, they are down, and we thought he was the Messiah. And we thought he was the one who was going to liberate Israel. And he was crucified. And of course, he appeared to them in a different form, so they couldn't recognize him. So when he went inside the house with them and he broke bread, then he revealed himself to them, and then, of course, they believed, and they ran 7 miles to tell the other apostles. But Peter denied the Lord 3 times. And now John, in his last chapter, will give us a beautiful account of the restoration of the discipleship of Peter. Christ is going to reprove him and correct him so beautifully. Just a couple words, without talking about the denial, without saying, didn't you say that you would never deny me, even if everybody else would run except you? When he said that tonight they will strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. And Peter, he acted a little bit egotistically there when he said, all the others might do that. They might all abandon you, but I will never abandon you. I will lay my life down for you. So basically what Peter did, he raised himself a little bit above the other apostles. They're going to be weaker than I am. And that needed to be corrected. And Christ told them prophetically that before the rooster crows, you'll deny me 3 times. And that's exactly what happened. So after this, Peter was totally devastated. But as Christ was walking away and going to the crucifixion, he looked at Peter at a very compassionate look. And then he realized that, what did I do? I just denied him 3 times. And he is in a terrible psychological state. Am I going to be an apostle? How did I do this? How did I manage to do this? So now he needs to be restored. So when they told him that he resurrected, St. Mary Magdalene told him, he went and saw an empty tomb. The Lord was not appearing to them every day. He would appear here and there to strengthen their faith, to progressively strengthen their faith in his resurrection. So he appeared once, a week later once more. Then he left them alone 1 more week for them to have it all sink in. So they say, you know what, let's go fishing. I mean, they sold their boats. I don't know what they did. They want to rent a boat. I don't know how they found a boat. But they went to the lake of Tiberias, to the Sea of Tiberias. And it was 8 of them. Thomas was with them, and 5, 6, 7 others, and Peter. So they go out 3, 4 in the morning like fishermen do, and they spend 3, 4, 5 hours fishing, and they did catch, as we say in Greek, they didn't catch a single scale, not fish, but utelepi. Okay? Not a scale. So they are again feeling tired, down after 3-4 hours of working, and then they hear a voice from the beach. Children, do you have anything to eat? No, we don't. It was not a happy response. They had nothing. No, we don't have anything. And then they hear the voice. Cast your nets to the right side of the boat. And John, who had the purest of the hearts of the apostles, that's why he casted out all fear and went under the cross, he immediately recognized the voice of the Lord, although it was about 100 yards away and in a different form. He recognized it in his soul. He knew. He says, it is the Lord. And of course they obeyed. They throw the nets in the sea, and immediately 152 very large fish go and jump into the net. And now Peter cannot hold back. He needs to go and confess. He needs to go and, restore himself. Can't wait because, they have to drag the boat and the fish. The fish are very heavy. They don't bring the net up because it'll rip. So they drag the net inside the water along with the boat, and it's going to take quite a few minutes to bring the boat out. Peter can't wait. Now, lakes are not very deep, so Peter was semi-naked. So he gets his tunic, he dresses himself, he jumps in the water. He doesn't swim because, again, some of these waters are about 2-3 feet high in Greece and in lakes. So he runs out. He just walks through the water and he gets in front of the Lord. And in due time, the boat comes out. And when they go out, he has a wonderful fire waiting for them. And this is all done for Peter, to remind Peter the exact scene a few days before, because there was a fire when it was very cold on Holy Wednesday night, and they were around a fire. And that's where Peter denied the Lord. And to set the stage, the Lord has a fire ready with charcoals. And he has one fish on the fire. Why one fish? He could have many other fish, just one, because he wants our effort as well. You want to have my body and blood, you're going to bring your wheat and your wine. You're going to go to the hills, you're going to find wheat, you're going to bring it to the mill, you're going to make bread out of it, and then you're going to bring it to church, and then I will give you my body and blood. It's the synergy of creation and creator. So he has one fish. The rest is going to come from the 152. So they take some more fish, they put it on the fire, and now they're ready to have breakfast. It doesn't look the same. He's in a different form. But no one dares ask, who are you? They know in their heart. They know. Just like on Holy Transfiguration, how did the apostles knew that it was Moses and Elijah on Mount Tabor? Through the Holy Spirit. They were informed by the Holy Spirit. In the same way, in their heart, they knew it was the Lord. And Thomas no longer wants to ask, can I touch you? He says nothing, because now their faith is becoming progressively stronger. And now the Inquisition begins, because Peter needs to be restored before he goes out and teaches. And now the Lord asks, Peter, do you love me more than all the others? Do you love me more than the rest of the disciples? He says, Lord, I love you. Not more than the other, actually. Peter, philisme, do you love me more than these? And as Peter confesses, he's beginning to elevate him back to his apostleship. Second time, Peter, do you love me more than all the others? Lord, I love you. Third time. Now, if it stopped at the second time, maybe Peter wouldn't suspect. But the third time, Peter caught on, and he was deeply saddened in his heart, because he knew that this was because of the 3 denials. And during the third time, Peter felt devastated, and in much sadness and much repentance, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Feed my lamb, feed my sheep. And again, those terms are used because the writer didn't want to use the same word 3 times. He just uses lamb and sheep interchangeably, even though some interpreters, they tried to give some kind of a different interpretation. That's not necessary. Sheep and lamb is pretty much the same thing. In other words, he's inviting him to say, Peter, it's not enough for you just to love me. It's not enough. You must go out and feed my brothers and sisters all over the nations, Maria. You need to go out and tell the story of our saints all over the world. You need to go out. If you love me, you're going to do this. You're not going to keep this love to yourself. Peter, it's not enough for you to love me. You must feed my sheep. You must feed my lamb. Go out all over the nations. And with that third proclamation of Peter, Lord, you know that I love you. Then after that, not only he restores him to full discipleship, and here our friends, the Catholics, they say that, oh, this was singling out Peter because Peter was higher than the other apostles. Where do you see that? Not only he wasn't higher, he almost was not an apostle. He wept bitterly after he heard the rooster crow. And not only that, for the rest of his life, any time he would hear a rooster, he would weep bitterly. And after this, the Lord also tells him how he would finish his life. He tells him, okay, now you're an apostle again, and you're going to finish your life with a martyr's death. When you were younger, you went wherever you wanted to go, but when you get much older, they are going to lead you and make you do things that you may not want to do, which means they're going to make you go on the cross. Nobody wants to die, obviously. We were not born to die, but we are called to die instead of denying our Lord. And when later on it came time for him to confess the Lord in front of the Romans, in front of the unbelievers, not only did he die on the cross, but he asked to die upside down because he was not worthy to die as his Lord. And this is the humility and love that was restored to Peter through these wonderful accounts of the evangelists.
May I ask one other
Sure.
thing? He says, the Lord says at the supper, says, Satan has desired to sift you as wheat,
Yes.
but I have prayed for you. Just imagine that.
Of course.
Incarnate God, he had to have some in it. I have prayed for you.
Of course. He saw that Peter would be weak at that time. And, the devil was looking to destroy all the apostles. He tried to destroy the church. And for the next 3 centuries, he would be trying to kill as many Christians as he could by using his agents, the pagans. But the devil saw something that he didn't expect. He would kill 100, and then 1,000 converts would come to the church. He would kill 1,000, and 10,000 would come to the church. And after 3 centuries, he said, you know what, this doesn't work. Because through being killed, the whole Roman Empire was baptized in the blood of the martyrs. It was the martyrdom of the first Christians that made the pagan Roman Empire into the Christian Roman Empire. Because one thing that motivates people and makes people believe is our position in front of death. People are not extremely happy to die. And they could not fathom how easily these Christians were running to their death. The church got to a point, so listen, you will not run to your death. You will hide. We need you to be teaching. We need catechists. We need people in the church. Don't run to be martyrs unless you're caught. Now, if you're apprehended, fine. But don't go out by yourself and start breaking idols. Some did that, overcome by the zeal of the Holy Spirit. But the church says, hey, enough is enough. Wait a second. We also need people alive here. Like St. Anthony, when St. Anthony wanted to be a martyr, he left the desert, and he went to Egypt. He went to Alexandria, and he was looking to become a martyr. He would go around the martyrs and try to strengthen them on, but none of the pagans wanted to they just wouldn't touch him. The Spirit of God, they wouldn't touch him. He would go into the courtroom and defend the martyrs, but none of them would touch him. And St. Anthony got upset. He said, you know what? I guess I'm not called to be a martyr. So he went back to become a martyr of conscience. So you can either become a martyr of blood, or you can also become a martyr of conscience. And today our young people out there in the almost pagan world that we're beginning to live in again, because that's exactly what the book of the Revelation says. I brought 20 volumes back there somewhere, and you need to buy those to help the building of this church. They're going to be donated for the building fund, and we're going to discount them at $20 each. They're a little bit more than that, so they're back there somewhere. You can ask for them.
Highly recommended.
But in the book of the Revelation, it says, the beast that was, it was not, and it will come up again. So the beast, which is idolatry and the demons in the Old Testament, how people sacrifice their children to Moloch, the beast that was, it will not, it will stop being. And that represents the first 1,500 years of Christianity, 1,800 years. The gospel put an end, at least most of the idolatry. The beast that was, it will come up again. And we see that in our days. Paganism is overwhelmingly taken over our schools and some of our churches. Millions of children in the whole world, once again, are being sacrificed to Moloch through abortions. History repeats itself. So you're going to be martyrs of conscience. In your conscience, if you suffer every day because of these things, if you suffer every day for the dilemma of your country and your politicians, if your heart suffers for the injustice out in the world, you are a martyr of conscience. And that's a little bit more difficult, because sometimes when they cut your neck off, that takes about a minute. You're done in a minute or two. But someone can suffer for years and years as a martyr of conscience, seeing all this injustice and all this untruth and all these great perversions that are taking place in front of our very eyes, destroying the image of God. But we need to have the courage of the myrrh-bearing women, that joy of the myrrh-bearing women. We have to continue and give that hope and joy and faith to the world. That's what the world needs today. Needs a living Orthodox presence. Not orthodoxy by name only, but a living Orthodox presence with empirical knowledge. And we receive that empirical knowledge if we are people of prayer. I was just reading to Maria back there something very beautiful from Elder Justin Parvu of Romania, whom I had the great pleasure to meet and speak with for about an hour back in 2005 at his monastery in Petrovoda. And he writes that one of the greatest sins of our days is indifference. Indifference by our Orthodox Christians. That kind of indifference is one of the 7 vices according to Cassian the Roman. Akivia in Greek. Spiritual laziness. Spiritual sloth. Being at a football game for 6, 7, 8 hours and not being able to pray for 10, 15 minutes every day the Jesus prayer. How can that be? And he says that in the days to come, there will be so much perversion, there will be so much falsehood, that only the Jesus prayer will make us stand. Mm-hmm. And that is something that God has provided for us through our monastics, even here in America. 30, 40 years ago, we didn't know what this was. We had no idea what a prayer rope was. Even in the Greek churches, especially in the Greek churches, who came here to modernize the church because they thought that by modernizing the priests, they would attract the Americans. They were totally mistaken, because every Christian soul is Christian according to Augustine, especially young people. They want truth. They want empirical truth. And the young people today, they experience sin, and sin is an experience. Sin is a real life experience. So it's not enough just to say stories and read Bible stories to our youth. We need to teach them how to pray. Once they learn to pray the Jesus prayer every day for 10, 15 minutes and become second nature, they will have an empirical knowledge in their heart, and they will see how things are aligned properly in their days, how the providence of God will follow them every day in their lives. And that becomes an empirical knowledge of the resurrected Lord. And that's what we need. And thank God for the elders like St. Justin that prepared us for the things that are coming. We had hundreds of elders last century and saints. In the little country of Greece, we had over 50 saints in the 20th century. This is unheard of. God prepared us because He's always with us. He will continue to be with us. But we need to continue to have the hope, faith, and love of the myrrh-bearing women. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Okay, we have a few minutes for a couple questions.
I just want to say, I think today is the first day I understood why the angel says, "Go tell the other disciples and Peter."
Yes.
Peter's differentiated from the disciples.
According to the Catholics, he's differentiated because he's the top of the apostles. No.
I mean, that interpretation never made sense.
No, as a matter of fact, one of the theologians that I listened to, he says, Peter was also in danger of suicide. He was despondent. He's devastated. What happened to me? And that catches him. Go tell my brethren and Peter. Tell him that I still love him.
And you said St. Gregory Palamas. I used to think also, didn't St. John Chrysostom comment on the person of the mother of James? Because also, and I thought it was him, and I could be mistaken, but I remember reading gospel commentary.
Yeah, it's a wonderful sermon. I will send it to your email if you want to put it on your bulletin or something. It's really just a glorious interpretation of the Gospels.
She didn't want to attract attention to herself.
Not only to herself,
but didn't want to distract from.
His mother cannot be a witness to the resurrection. And the Saint Bird catches this. And I knew of this sermon years ago, and I did a couple lectures on it. I think I have a recording on it somewhere else, but I'm glad I did it here today because we'll have this on our YouTube as well. We do have a YouTube channel, Nicodemus Haggerite, with about 500 talks. So for those of you who don't have anything else to do... Nicodemus Haggerite, or you can just put on Google St. Nicodemus Publications, and the website or it'll come up. Yeah. Also, another thing on our website, St. Nicodemus Publications. On our website, you will find 9 amazing videos of the life of St. Paisios, with some outstanding actors who are also very Christian.
The modern Paisios.
The modern Paisios that show step by step his life from childhood all the way probably to his death. So it's going to be in 30 videos. And it's done by a producing company in Greece. And 2 years ago, I think in the little country of Greece, 2 million views on these videos. Out of 10 million people. So it just shows a few other saints, like Saint Galliopius. He was crucified on Holy Friday, and his mother paid the guards to put him on the cross because his mother wanted him, and he wanted to die like Christ. Okay, but because of the denial, Peter says, "I'm not worthy to die the same way." He just shows the humility of Saint Peter, but the death was the same. It was still crucifixion. By the way, it was St. Constantine the Great that stopped crucifixion at 313. He made crucifixion illegal in the Roman Empire. And, after that, no more crucifixions. But
St. Andrew crossed the X cross.
The X cross in Patras, Greece, yes.
I think of the United Kingdom flag. There's 2 crosses. St. George, the straight one, and the X one of St. Andrew, recognize the joining of England and Scotland. But the fact that there are 2 martyrs' crosses on national emblem.
Yes. Yes, Sophia.
You said that the women weren't allowed to touch the body, but I thought the myrrh-bearing women were going to the tomb because the women prepared the bodies for the death.
They were not supposed to be next to a naked body because the Lord was crucified naked.
So it was because he was naked?
Yes. So after the body was wrapped in linen, in the strips of linen, after the body was totally covered, and I forgot to mention that they also, the they would not put myrrh on the head. They had a handkerchief, or a sudarion in Greek, and they would just cover the face with a napkin or handkerchief. And then that napkin was folded by the angels and put aside neatly when the myrrh-bearing women went there. So what they would do is they would put more myrrh and spices on the already covered body of the Lord to slow the decay, because they needed to slow down the odor, and they would be able to go for 3 and 4 and 5 days to continue to give honor to the body. It was one of the custom, and of course they didn't realize that the Lord, that spice was already used a week or a few weeks before by Lazarus' sister, Mary. Mary went and bought 300 denarii worth of spices and put them on him, and the woman of sin also put myrrh all over his feet, so that already prefigure his burial.
And you mentioned that the wise men had already done the...
Of course, yeah. And St. Gregory says, they didn't realize that they were going to do what? Take spices to the fragrance of life? I mean, he's the fragrance of life. How can you do that?
You mentioned one of my favorite people of the Bible, St. John, the theologian, evangelist.
Because you're named John, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to get to that. I have a kind of a big question here.
Yes.
How do I become more like him?
Well, he tells you in all his... You got to read the most amazing Gospels of John. They're being read on Holy Thursday night. And it repeats this over and over and over. Who is the one who loves me? Who is the one who loves me? Who comes to church? The one who gives money? No, who's the one who loves me? What does he answer? Christ repeats over and over again. Who is the one who loves me? The one who has my commandments. The one who has my law and keeps it. The one who keeps my commandments. Because as we keep the commandments, we purify our hearts. That's what the commandments is, an antidote to sin. They are given to us to purify our heart.
If you love me, keep my
If you love me, keep my commandments.
And I will pray the Father, and he will give you another.
And this is why he went under the cross, because he had the purest of hearts. He was pure, and this is why he was given the most pure woman, the Virgin Mary. And he says, behold your mother. He trusted his mother with the purest of the apostles. And when he was ready to die and he could no longer speak, he was like 95 years old. He said nothing else. Children, love one another. He repeated this verse over and over again to all the Christians right before his death. So,
God is love.
Yes.